Before we begin this journey into the unknown, drop a quick comment below. It really helps the algorithm share this story with more sci-fi lovers like you. Now let's dive into something that will change how you see the universe forever. The message arrived on a Tuesday, not with fanfare or warning, just a simple ping on the Deep Space Monitoring Station orbiting Proxima Centauri. Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at the data stream, her coffee growing cold as the implications hit her like a meteor strike. Control, this is Deep Space Station Omega-7. We're detecting an artificial signal from the void sector. Her voice cracked slightly. The void sector, that empty patch of space beyond the galactic rim where nothing existed. Nothing should exist. Commander James Morrison's face appeared on her screen, his expression shifting from routine boredom to sharp attention. Repeat that, Omega-7. Did you say artificial? Elena's hands trembled as she adjusted the signal filters. Confirmed control, mathematical progression, prime number sequences, and... She paused, her face paling. It's using Earth's old military encryption protocols, patterns that were classified above top secret. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Morrison's jaw tightened. Doctor, those protocols have been buried for 3 centuries. No one alive knows them. Someone does, Elena whispered, staring at the cascading data. And they're calling us home. The transmission cut to static, then resumed with new urgency. Control, you need to see this. The signal isn't just from the void sector. It's from multiple points forming a perfect geometric pattern. Someone built something out there. Something massive. Morrison's face disappeared from the screen, replaced by the seal of the Terran Defense Consortium. Within hours, Elena found herself aboard the TDC Prometheus, humanity's most advanced deep space vessel, heading toward coordinates that shouldn't exist. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her silver hair catching the starlight streaming through the viewport. Dr. Vasquez, in your professional opinion, what are we flying toward? Elena studied the readings again. The energy signatures are beyond anything in our databases. Whatever's out there has technology that makes our best ships look like steam engines. She looked up at Chen. Captain, I don't think we're alone in this. The signal pattern suggests coordination between at least 12 separate installations. The Prometheus shuddered as it engaged its quantum drive, folding space around them. But as they approached the void sector, something strange began to happen. Captain, called out Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station. Our instruments are showing impossible readings. The space ahead, it's not empty. There are massive structures, but they're not reflecting light or radar. They're absorbing everything. Through the viewport, they could see it, or rather, they could see what it was hiding. Stars disappeared in perfect geometric patterns, outlining the shapes of structures so vast they defied comprehension. My God, whispered Chen, it's a ring around empty space, but the circumference... She turned to Torres. How big is that structure? Torres's voice was barely audible. Approximately 50,000 kilometers in diameter, Captain. But that's not the strangest part. Our deep scans are detecting artificial gravity fields, atmospheric processors, and what appears to be cities. Elena's workstation erupted in cascading alerts. Captain, I'm receiving a direct transmission. It's coming from the structure itself. She looked up, her face pale. It's in perfect English, but the voice pattern analysis suggests the speaker is ancient, centuries old. The bridge fell silent as Elena patched the transmission through the ship's speakers. A voice emerged, calm and measured, carrying in weight of unimaginable age. Terran vessel Prometheus, this is Sanctuary Command. We've been waiting for you. Please follow the navigation beacon to Docking Bay 7 and Dr. Vasquez. The voice paused. Thank you for answering our call. It's time you learned what really happened to Project Exodus. Chen's blood ran cold. Project Exodus was a myth, a legend whispered about in the deepest archives of military history. The story of humanity's first attempt to reach beyond the stars, launched in secret during the resource wars of 2157. Captain, Elena said, her voice shaking, Project Exodus was supposed to have failed. The ships were lost in deep space. All hands presumed dead. She looked at the massive structure looming ahead of them. But what if they didn't fail? What if they found something out here? The Prometheus followed the beacon toward the structure, and as they approached, details became visible. The ring wasn't a single construct. It was thousands of ships, fused together over centuries, forming a continuous habitat that enclosed a volume of space larger than Earth's orbit around the Sun. Docking Base 7 is directly ahead, Torres reported. But Captain, our sensors are detecting multiple ship signatures inside that structure. Terran designs, but modified, enhanced. Some of them are massive, larger than anything we've ever built. As they docked, Elena noticed something that made her stomach drop. The airlock seals were compatible with their systems, but they were old, very old, and they showed signs of continuous use for centuries. The airlock opened with a hiss, and they were greeted by a figure in a pristine uniform bearing the insignia of the Terran Deep Space Command, an organization that had been disbanded 300 years ago. The man was tall, silver-haired, and carried himself with the bearing of someone accustomed to command. "Welcome to Sanctuary," he said, his voice the same one they'd heard over the transmission. "I'm Admiral Marcus Kane, Project Exodus Fleet Command. I apologize for the dramatic introduction, but we needed to be certain you were ready for the truth." Chen stepped forward, her mind reeling. "Admiral Kane? But that's impossible. Project Exodus launched in 2157. You'd have to be over 300 years old." Kane smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Time works differently out here, Captain. When you're running from something that wants to exterminate every human in the galaxy, you learn to adapt, you learn to survive, and you learn to prepare." He led them through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, past viewing ports that showed the impossible scope of the structure. "What you're seeing is the result of 3 centuries of continuous construction. We've built a civilization out here, hidden in the void sector where no one would think to look." Elena stopped walking. "Running from what, Admiral? What were you running from?" Kane's expression darkened. "The same thing that's been hunting humanity since we first looked up at the stars. The same thing that's been manipulating our development, our wars, our technology. The architects." "The architects?" Chen's voice was skeptical. "Admiral, there's no evidence of hostile alien intelligence. The galaxy is empty of advanced civilizations." Kane laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Captain, the galaxy isn't empty. It's been harvested. Every advanced civilization that ever arose, every species that reached for the stars, they're all gone, and the architects are the reason why." He led them to a massive viewing chamber where the true scope of their situation became clear. Through the transparent walls, they could see not just the ring structure, but dozens of other installations scattered throughout the void sector. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering, but they were all built for war. "The architects follow a pattern," Kane explained. "They allow civilizations to develop, to reach a certain level of technology, and then they harvest them. But they made a mistake with humanity. They underestimated our capacity for survival." Elena stared at the installations, her mind struggling to process the implications. "How many of you are there?" "Approximately 2 million souls," Kane replied. "Descendants of the original Exodus fleet, plus volunteers who've joined us over the centuries. We've been preparing for 300 years, building weapons and defenses that the architects have never seen." "But why now?" Chen asked. "Why reveal yourselves now?" Kane's expression grew grim. "Because they're coming. Our deep space sensors have detected architect scout ships entering the galaxy. They finished with the Andromeda Galaxy, and they're turning their attention to the Milky Way. Earth has maybe 6 months before the harvest begins." The chamber fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Elena felt her legs give out, and she sank into a nearby chair. 6 months? But Earth has no defenses against something like this. Our military is designed for human conflicts, not this. "That's why we sent the signal," Kane said. "It's time to bring humanity into the real war. The war for survival against forces that view us as nothing more than resources to be consumed." He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy in 3 dimensions. Red markers indicated the locations of dead civilizations, and there were hundreds of them. The Vegan Collective, masters of biotechnology, extinct. The crystalline hegemony, who could manipulate matter at the molecular level? Extinct. The ethereal communion, who transcended physical form? Extinct. But you survived, Chen said, her voice barely above a whisper. We didn't just survive, Kane replied. We evolved, we learned, and we built something the architects have never encountered before, a civilization that exists specifically to fight them. He led them to another section of the facility where they encountered something that defied belief. Humans working alongside beings that clearly weren't human, but weren't quite alien either. The remnants, Kane explained. Survivors from other civilizations who escaped the harvest. They found their way to us, and we've been working together ever since. The ethereals taught us to manipulate energy without technology. The crystallines showed us how to build materials that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Elena watched in fascination as a human technician worked with a being of pure energy, their combined efforts creating something that seemed to bend reality around itself. What are they building? Weapons, Kane said simply. Weapons that can kill an architect. It took us 2 centuries to develop the first prototype, and another century to perfect it. They're not invincible, Captain. They're just very, very difficult to kill. Chen's military training kicked in. How many ships do they have? What's their standard attack pattern? Kane's smile was predatory. That's the beauty of it, Captain. They don't have ships. They are ships. The architects are machine intelligences that have grown to the size of small moons. They don't land on planets. They consume them. Literally. Then how do we fight something like that? Elena asked, her scientific mind struggling with the concept. We don't fight them conventionally, Kane replied. We use their own methods against them. The architects operate by converting matter into energy, then using that energy to create more architects. But we've learned to reverse the process. He led them to what could only be described as a weapons testing facility. Through reinforced viewing ports, they watched as a beam of impossible energy struck a target, and the target simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but erased from reality itself. The void cannon, Kane explained. It doesn't destroy matter. It convinces the universe that the matter was never there to begin with. We built 50 of them, each one capable of erasing an architect from existence. Elena stared at the weapon, her mind reeling. The energy requirements alone are met by the void itself, Kane finished. The space between galaxies isn't empty, Dr. Vasquez. It's full of potential energy that the architects can't access. But we can. Chen's pragmatic mind cut through the technical details. Admiral, even with weapons like this, how do we protect Earth? How do we evacuate 2 billion people? Kane's expression grew serious. We don't evacuate them, Captain. We make Earth the bait. The silence that followed was deafening. Chen's face flushed with anger. You want to use Earth as bait? Use 2 billion innocent people as bait? Not as bait to be consumed, Kane clarified quickly, as bait to draw them into a trap. The architects always begin harvesting with the most developed worlds. They'll come to Earth first, expecting easy prey. Instead, they'll find the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. Elena leaned forward. What do you mean? Kane activated another holographic display, this one showing Earth's solar system. But it wasn't the system they remembered. Hidden installations dotted every planet, asteroid, and moon. Weapon platforms that didn't exist in any Earth database. Defense networks that spanned the entire system. We've been preparing Earth's defenses for 3 centuries, Kane explained. Every asteroid miner, every deep space surveyor, every failed exploration mission. They were all cover for construction crews building the largest fortress in the galaxy. The people of Earth don't know? Chen asked. They're about to, Kane replied. The signal we sent to Dr. Vasquez was just the beginning. In 72 hours, we'll begin the Revelation Protocol. Every human on Earth will learn the truth about the universe, about the architects, and about their role in the war to come. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. What happens then? Then we find out what humanity is really made of, Kane said. The architects have harvested thousands of civilizations, but they've never faced a species that had 3 centuries to prepare. They've never faced a species that chose to fight back instead of fleeing. Through the viewing port, Elena could see the massive defensive installations hidden throughout the void sector. Ships that dwarfed anything in Earth's fleet, weapons that could crack planets, and beings that had transcended the normal limitations of biology and physics. "Admiral," she said quietly, "what if we lose?" Kane's eyes hardened. "Then we make sure they remember us. We make sure that every architect that survives knows that humanity was here, that we fought, and that we made them pay for every life they took." He paused, looking out at the stars. "But I don't think we'll lose, Doctor. The architects are ancient, powerful, and ruthless. But they've grown complacent. They expect their prey to run or to surrender. They don't expect their prey to have spent 3 centuries building a trap." Chen straightened, her military bearing returning. "What do you need from us, Admiral?" "I need you to return to Earth and prepare them for what's coming. I need you to help coordinate the integration of our technologies with Earth's existing defenses. And I need you to help us identify the humans who are ready to fight." "How many of us are there, really?" Elena asked. "How many humans have you made contact with over the centuries?" Kane smiled for the first time since they'd met him. "More than you'd think, Doctor. We've been very careful, very selective, but we've been building a network for 300 years. Researchers who've stumbled onto pieces of the truth, military officers who've noticed inconsistencies in the historical record, engineers who've been asked to build things they don't understand. A shadow civilization," Chen murmured. "A civilization with a purpose," Kane corrected. "Every human who's ever looked up at the stars and wondered if we're alone, every person who's ever felt like there was something missing from the official version of history, they were right. And many of them have been working with us, even if they didn't know it." Elena thought about her own career, the unexplained funding for her research, the technologies that had appeared seemingly from nowhere. "How long have you been watching me?" "Since you published your paper on quantum entanglement communication," Kane replied. "We've been guiding your research for the past 15 years, preparing you for this moment." The implications hit her like a physical blow. "Everything I've discovered, every breakthrough I've made, was yours, Doctor. We simply provided opportunities and resources. The brilliance, the insights, the innovations, those were all you. We just made sure you had the tools to reach your full potential." Chen felt a similar realization dawning. The deep space patrol missions, the classified objectives. "Training," Kane confirmed. "You've been preparing for this war your entire career, Captain. You and thousands of others. When the time comes to reveal the truth to Earth, we'll need leaders who can help humanity understand what they're facing." "And what about those who can't handle the truth?" Elena asked. "What about the people who'll panic, who'll try to flee or surrender?" Kane's expression grew sad. "Then they'll learn what every other civilization learned too late. There's nowhere to run, and the architects don't accept surrender. The only choice is to fight or to die. But humans are different. We've proven that over and over again throughout our history." "How can you be so sure?" Chen asked. "Because we're standing here," Kane replied simply. "Because when faced with extinction, we didn't flee to another galaxy. We stayed, we built, we prepared, and we're ready to fight for our species' survival." Through the viewing port, they could see the massive war machines of the Sanctuary fleet, ships that had been built not for exploration or trade, but for a single purpose: to kill the unkillable. "Admiral," Elena said, "there's something I need to know. In all your centuries of preparation, have you ever encountered an architect directly? Have you ever seen one of these beings?" Kane's face grew grim. "Once. 50 years ago, a scout ship entered our territory. It was smaller than the main harvesters, but still the size of a small moon. We engaged it with our most advanced weapons at the time. What happened? We barely scratched it. The architect consumed 2 of our ships and nearly breached our primary defenses before we managed to drive it off. But we learned something crucial. They can be hurt, they can be damaged, and with enough force, they can be destroyed." Elena shuddered. "How many of the larger ones are coming?" "Our sensors have detected at least 12 primary harvesters entering the galaxy, each one accompanied by dozens of smaller scouts and support vessels. If they follow their usual pattern, they'll converge on the most developed systems first. Earth, Mars, the Jupiter colonies," Chen said. Exactly, which is why we need to be ready. The first Architect vessels will arrive in approximately 5 months. We need to have Earth's defenses fully integrated with our systems by then. Elena felt the weight of the universe pressing down on her. What about the other human colonies, the frontier worlds? They're already being evacuated or fortified, depending on their strategic value. Some will become fortress worlds. Others will be evacuated to the deep shelters we built throughout the galaxy. But Earth? Kane paused. Earth is special. It's not just our homeworld, it's a symbol. If Earth survives, humanity survives. If Earth falls, our species might endure, but we'll never be the same. No pressure, Chen said grimly. Kane smiled. Captain, you've been training for this your entire life. You just didn't know it. When the time comes, you'll know what to do. He led them to a final chamber, this one containing a massive holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated the locations of approaching Architect forces, while blue markers showed human defensive positions. This is our war room, Kane explained. From here, we'll coordinate the defense of not just Earth, but of every human settlement in the galaxy. We have approximately 2 million combat-ready personnel, 50,000 vessels of various classes, and weapons that can rewrite the laws of physics. Elena stared at the display. It's really happening, isn't it? We're going to war with beings that have destroyed thousands of civilizations. We are, Kane confirmed, but we have something none of those other civilizations had. Time to prepare and the will to fight. The Architects expect us to behave like every other species they've encountered. They expect us to panic, to flee, to surrender. They don't expect us to have spent 3 centuries building a trap. Chen stepped forward. Admiral, what do you need us to do? Return to Earth, begin the integration process. And when the time comes for the revelation, help your people understand that this isn't the end of the world. It's the beginning of humanity's real journey among the stars. As they prepared to leave Sanctuary, Elena took one last look at the massive installation. Admiral, do you really think we can win? Kane was quiet for a long moment. Doctor, 300 years ago, humanity was confined to a single planet. Today, we're spread across the galaxy, hidden in the void between stars, allied with the survivors of dead civilizations, and armed with weapons that can erase matter from existence. If that's not victory, I don't know what is. The journey back to Earth passed in contemplative silence. Chen and Elena spent the time reviewing the technical specifications Kane had given them, trying to understand the scope of the integration they'd need to perform. Elena, Chen said finally, are you ready for this? Are you ready to help turn our entire species into soldiers? Elena looked out at the stars, thinking about the vast defensive network hidden among them. Sarah, I don't think we're turning them into soldiers. I think we're helping them become what they were always meant to be, which is survivors. As Earth grew larger in their viewport, both women could see the subtle signs of the hidden defenses Kane had described. What they'd always assumed were asteroid mining operations, deep space monitoring stations, and scientific research platforms suddenly took on new meaning. It's all been there all along, Elena whispered. We just didn't know how to see it. Chen activated the ship's communication system. Earth Control, this is the Prometheus requesting priority approach clearance. We're carrying classified materials for immediate delivery to Terran Defense Command. The response came immediately. Prometheus, you're cleared for priority approach. Welcome home. But as they entered Earth's atmosphere, both women knew that home would never be the same again. Elena, Chen said quietly, in 5 months, either we'll have won the greatest victory in human history, or we'll have fought the last battle our species ever fights. Elena nodded, watching the blue sky of Earth surround them. Then we'd better make it count. As the Prometheus touched down at the secure facility in Colorado, both women could see the subtle signs of preparation beginning. Personnel moving with unusual urgency, equipment being relocated, and a tension in the air that suggested humanity was about to learn the truth about its place in the universe. The revelation begins in 72 hours, Chen said, repeating Kane's words. And then? Elena asked. Then we find out what humanity is really made of, Chen replied. We find out if 3 centuries of preparation was enough. We find out if we're ready to fight for our survival against beings that have never been defeated. As they walked across the tarmac toward the facility, Elena looked up at the sky one more time. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the galaxy, ancient intelligences were approaching. They expected to find a primitive species ready for harvest. Instead, they would find something that had never existed before in the history of the galaxy. A species that had spent 3 centuries preparing for their arrival. A species that had built a civilization specifically designed to fight back against the dark. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. And for the first time in galactic history, the architects might finally have met their match. The end. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the stars. What did you think of humanity's hidden preparation? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts on the coming war against the architects. And if you enjoyed this story, check out the other videos in my sci-fi series. The universe is vast and full of secrets waiting to be discovered. Ingenuity.